Richard Crouse.
When I first heard about it, let me tell you this, when I first heard about it, I thought, well, it sounds a little bit like a British Death Wish. It sounds, you know, the Charles Bronson movies. Now, having seen it, I understand now that it's not that.
Right.
But I've been reading that you guys are comparing it more to a Western than to anything else. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, that was how I got sort of really intrigued by the film, other than knowing that Michael Caine was going to be in it. But and that was a sort of no-brainer. But then I read the script, and I was thinking as I was reading it, this is very good and interesting, but it could easily fall into somehow into sort of TV cop territory,
A CSI or Law and Order kind of thing, right?
And that kind of that cliche, and it needs to be elevated out of that somehow. And then I met Daniel, the director. And I saw a film that he made, a short film. This is his first feature film. But he made a short film called The Tonto Woman, which was nominated for an Oscar, and based on this Cormac McCarthy short story, I think. And it was a Western, you know, set in out west, you know, however many years ago, and very epic, very beautiful, very strange, kind of sexy, beautifully paced, really strange and excellent performances, and there was just some quality to it that was very arresting. And I knew from watching that film that this was the guy to direct Harry Brown, and that he would elevate it from the potential cliche of sort of TV cop drama into something bigger and better than that. And when I talked to him about the film, he said he wanted to bring that quality of a Western to it. And so, I mean, I think it's very subtle, but it is there, you know, that this is the vigilante being played by Michael Caine, who's being pursued by the sort of the sheriff character, which I guess is me. It's sort of a very strange version of a sort of Tommy Lee Jones in yeah. Or even the Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah, No Country for Old Men.
And he, in fact, he said with me he used quite a lot of typical Western shots, like the cowboy shot, they call it, I think, where they put the camera on the ground and there you are emerging. And you know, and then there are moments with the guys and the girls in the subway, and this sort of, it's almost like a sort of an Indian, you know, Red Indian dance going on, and there's kind of the ritual of that, and I think there is an epic quality to the movie that is, if not immediately recognizable as a Western, it has an epic feel to it that really elevates it from the world of TV drama.
Well, I think what also elevates it from the world of TV drama and other films that are about urban violence or things like, well, any number of 100 movies that are going to get released this year, is that the violence in it looks real to me. You know, you're not seeing gunshots and people's heads exploding and knives slitting throats. The violence is the kind of violence that if you were to see someone get attacked on the street, that's what it looks like.
That's how it would look, yeah. I think you're really right about that, and I think that's what is another thing about the film that is so impressive, is that it's a very violent film, but we're used to violent films, and what's different about this is that it's very unpalatable violence, and what's happened, you know, in our modern era is that we've become so used to watching people having their heads blown off and all forms of violence, but it's presented to us in a way that is kind of anesthetized, where we get, you know, immune to it somehow, and I think this is very different. This is something which is difficult to watch and uncomfortable to watch, and that's what violence should be, you know, in a movie. And so I think it asks difficult questions. It's not easy. It's kind of uncomfortable in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a bar once when a huge brawl broke out, and I was quite young. I mean, young is probably too young to be in the bars, I think of it. But the violence in this movie struck me that's the only real violence I've ever seen was this fight, and it struck me to be along the same lines, you know,
Yeah.
people kicking and the,
Yes.
the hitting, and it's much more feral than it is in a movie, and
Yes.
it's much more violent.
Well, it was,
Yeah.
and it was. I mean, on the set, the experience of making it was, at times, almost frightening. You know, Daniel cast really brilliantly, and the people that played, the guys that play these hooligans, or hoodies as we call them in England, are just so perfectly cast, and all of them were fantastic guys, really nice guys, but really intense actors, and a lot of them had come from sort of similar backgrounds to the people that they were playing, and they found it very easy to get into character, and they were kind of given free rein a little bit, and to be on the sort of other end of that, receiving end of that, was at times kind of, you know, scary, and you know, there were moments where I mean, there's a moment when I'm being sort of strangled on the floor of this pub. The pub was a real pub in the East End of London.
A smelly real pub.
Yeah, the smelt of pee. You know, the carpet stank of fags and piss, and I was face down in it for quite a lot of the day. And then these terrible sort of slightly racist signs up on the walls, and you know, I mean, it's really nasty, and just the sensation of this guy, you know, guy with his hand around my neck for a long, long time. I mean, there was no sort of, it was real cutting edge, right. Sort of, we were doing our own stunts in that sense, and the kicking again, you know, that really was happening, and at times it was kind of infuriating. And I was thinking, you know, I was almost annoyed with Daniel for allowing this to happen, but I feel retrospectively that it was exactly as you say, that it was worth it, you know, because it helped. It really helps the movie, and it gives it a sort of a very real and uncomfortable edge.
Absolutely. Well, on a just purely technical note, the actor Emmett Walsh, he passed away a few years ago. He had a lot of movies that he had to die in, and he said the one trick you learn early on is that when you die in a movie, lie in a comfortable position, right? Because you're going to be in that position for a long time.
I know, exactly. Don't lie on a piss-covered floor in a pub in the Elephant and Castle if you can possibly help it.
Richard Crouse.